Hello, it's great to see you again, and welcome back to MSP Success Spotlight. I'm your host, Ryan Ruff. It's great to have you with us here on today's episode, and boy, do we have a good one lined up for you today. Today's episode featuring Mr. Greg Brainerd, the founder and CEO of BRAINTEK, LLC. BRAINTEK being a managed service provider in IT solutions that serves the greater Houston, Texas area. Greg has a really unique perspective when it comes to cybersecurity and his business model, and really, as we always like to talk about on this show, is of what makes BRAINTEK different from the rest of the pack. We're going to get into some of those differentiating factors in just a minute. So a few notes though about Greg. In addition to being the founder and CEO of BRAINTEK LLC, Greg, he published a book, the book titled Protecting Your Business Against Hackers. Also, Greg, another feature, we had a similar episode with another individual that was featured in the magazine recently, but Greg was featured in the summer 2021 edition of the MSP Success magazine. So Greg, no stranger to success here. We're excited to have him aboard and get today's conversation rolling. Hey, let's go ahead and welcome on Greg to the show. Greg, how you doing this morning? Good to see you.
I'm great. Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me on.
Happy to have you here. I'm excited to get into things. So, Greg, I think a great place for us to start our conversation today is how about you just kind of give us that 10,000-foot view, if you will. Talk to me a little bit about, your personal, your professional rise really to BRAINTEK. What led you to this MSP life and working in the IT solution space?
Well, I've always been interested in IT from a young person. And way back, I started working in my professional career at America Online, doing just simple technical support for them. And as the years kind of progressed, I got into learning a little bit more about networking and computers and took a bunch of certifications and then kind of moved my career in that direction. And I started working with a VAR back in Tucson, Arizona, back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And as the .com happened, I lost my job with them, and I had moved out to the Houston, Texas area and started working with an oil and gas company. And with oil and gas, when times are going great, they're growing and they're hiring people. But during the times where things are not going so great, they end up merging with a lot of companies. Well, this company had merged with another company, and my position became redundant. I happened to be working overnight at a data center. And so they had let me go. But during that transition time period, I had started BRAINTEK with my wife, and we had started doing that, in our spare time, and found a couple of clients, and then we were able to branch off on our own way back in this is now 2002.
So wow, I mean, that's always a daunting step, right? You've done the stable job, if you will, and then taking that step and launching into your own company. Walk me through what that was like mentally for you going through that process.
Well, at the time I was working the graveyard shift, and so I would wake up in the mornings I was working graveyard, so I'd come home and then I would start going to service some clients. My wife was going to chamber events and trying to drum up business, and then I'd go off and I'd service that business as soon as I could. And then I'd get some sleep, and then I'd go back to my job. Well, once they let me go because of the merger, I was able to focus on that full time. And so I joined my wife going to the different chamber events and other networking, trying to just find clients for us to support ourselves. And while it was difficult, it was quite rewarding, and it's obviously grown into where we are at today.
So when you guys launched this company, BRAINTEK, and you were going through this process, what were some of those core foundational things that you wanted to achieve with the company as it continued to move forward?
Well, one of the biggest things that I've been told from clients of ours is just our response rate. When I learned very early on that if I'm not calling people back, if I'm not being attentive to their needs, that they're going to go find somebody else that will. And so that was a huge point for me to continue to do that through my professional career as we started BRAINTEK, and just maintaining that I've got to respond to people as quickly as I possibly can. So that's either via email or on the phone or whatnot, getting on site to help them throughout their emergency problems that they were having. And then as time just adjusted, I started learning, instead of being so reactive, is maybe we could start trying to be more proactive and trying to make these problems that they were having kind of go away before there were even problems for them during the business hours. So that could be educating the user on how to do different things, or just making sure that, like the backups are working ahead of time. So when we have to restore something, we know that it's going to work for sure. So just being that responsive was very critical for us at that time period, and still is today.
Sure, responsiveness always can help forge better relationships when a client knows they can count on you. I mean, that's business 101 right there. But
Right.
talk to me, one of the big things we love to focus on the show, Greg, is these differentiating factors. There's so many managed service providers out there across the country, let alone the world. And it's the differentiating factors that really take the good ones and make them the great ones. You guys have clearly built a successful business there in the Houston area in BrainTek. So walk me through maybe what are your differentiating factors? What makes BrainTek unique and stands out from the rest of the pack?
Well, we don't outsource our help desk, so all of our guys are local here, and they're happy to serve people. We're constantly training people, so we're consistently having our technicians go through different training courses, so that like Network Plus or A Plus, those kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
and then just staying up on new technology. So as soon as something new is coming out, we're investing in buying those services or technologies and testing them out here in our facility and making sure that it's ready to go. And so when we present those solutions to our clients, that they're going to have the confidence level that we know how to do what we're talking about doing.
Sure. And one thing that you had, I love that, by the way. And another part of what you had mentioned that is key to the conversation today is that education part, because early education on these different IT solutions and elements at play can often lead to, the avoidance of issues or loss of money. I mean, these can be big pitfalls that can be ultimately avoided because of early education. Walk me through your role really within this education process, what that looks like maybe when you're on the phone with clients or in their office. Talk to me a little bit more about this education process you guys do.
Well, there's a lot of things that clients will end up having that is difficult for us to train on. So, for example, if they have some kind of software that we've never utilized before, how do we get up to speed on that? So, at that time, what we do is we really try to figure out those kinds of things out and then document those procedures and processes so that our other staff members are not going to have to relearn, what we've just learned. The other thing, if they're going to be things that are going to be real common, so this is like Microsoft Azure or other types of cloud technologies, is making sure that we are testing and training on those types of technologies so that we can bring those solutions to our clients before we're learning on the job. Although learning on the job is part of our, what we do every day as well, but we're trying to keep that as a minimum as we're going through this process of education.
Sure, completely understandable. One last, kind of high level question for the company as a whole. Walk me through your client base. Do you guys serve a particular, set of clients, a geographic set, maybe? Walk me through the range of clients that you guys work with, what kind of industries you're dealing with, so on and so forth.
Sure. So our primary focus is small businesses that are in the construction and manufacturing sectors. Obviously, being here in the Houston area, we have a lot of oil and gas companies. We try not to focus on them too much as the fluctuations in that particular industry happen to go up and down regularly. So again, when they're doing real well, they're spending lots of money. But of course, when the market pulls back, then they're laying everybody off or they're closing services or offices. So we focus on construction and manufacturing, with that oil and gas as our kind of a third sector that we work with. However, we work with all kinds of small companies. We have doctors' offices, accountants, everything that needs anybody that has a computer. We have a movie theater that we work with. So
Very,
quite a
very
few
cool.
different things.
Yeah, no, it's great to spread across a handful of different industries, and that's a common thread that we're seeing on a lot of the managed service providers that we've had on the podcast here is there's a lot of opportunity out there when you spread yourself across a handful of different industries, but also there is a lot to be said for working with a niche, working with a specific client set, and it sounds like you guys do a nice job when it comes to that manufacturing side of things and construction,
Right.
that is. Well, hey, I'd love to get into really the meat and potatoes now of what it is that you guys do specifically within the space of cybersecurity, because boy,
All
is
right.
this topic massive, these days. So talk to me a little bit about really your take on cybersecurity as a whole, why it's so important, why it is a big focal point of what you guys do at BrainTek. Give me this 101, if you will.
Well, over the past year now, we've had and we've seen lots of cyber attacks attacking many companies here in the United States, and so it's really become the a forefront topic for everybody, especially us trying to protect our clients from this. Daily, clients are getting phished. They're giving up credentials, whether they just don't know what they're doing or whatever, but they are tricked in these kinds of scenarios. And when that ends up happening is, the companies are being extorted for money to And it's just a really terrible thing. So what we're trying to do is trying to educate our client base to say, hey, look, we need to be very conscious of this so that you're not a target of this, and that you're not paying millions of dollars to somebody for a ransomware attack or whatnot. So what we've done is we're trying to get them to turn on free services like two-factor authentication. We're trying to make sure that they're utilizing VPNs. We're trying to make sure that they're using multiple passwords on multiple sites, so they're not sharing that password between one Facebook account and LinkedIn. And if one gets compromised, then that doesn't mean everything gets compromised.
Mm-hmm.
And putting on different technologies on their computers. We use a software package called Threat Locker, which will lock down the machine to the point that malware can't get on the machine. And we have some other technologies that are similar to that with antivirus, making sure the backups are working properly. So there's a whole culmination of things that need to be set up on these machines and networks to keep them safe.
Sure. I mean, a real comprehensive approach, it sounds like you guys take when it comes to cybersecurity and your clients. And one thing I really want to address and have you kind of speak a little bit to this is this misconception that cybersecurity, or rather cyber attacks even, on smaller businesses aren't as prevalent of a thing. It's that these hackers, they go after these bigger companies. Walk me through why that's just not true. Walk me through why it is that small businesses need to make sure they are taking the steps to be secure on their end to avoid these kind of mistakes as well.
Well, the misconception or the reality probably is that a lot of smaller companies don't have the dollars to invest in cybersecurity like the big companies can. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, their security is just not as good. And so it's a lot easier for them to walk in there and extort these small companies, business owners, and just take them, for everything they've got. And the large companies, while they have a much larger payday potentially, their security is just much stronger in a lot of cases, and not in every case, because we've heard about that in some of these attacks that have happened recently. But small companies are going to have money; they're going to be able to pay out, and so they're targets just as much as anybody else.
Sure. And one thing here, Greg, that you had mentioned is when you guys are working with smaller businesses, there are some relatively more cost-effective or cost-efficient strategies, like two-factor authentications, maybe leaning on some VPNs, some cheaper alternatives, really, but easy and effective solutions that they could be enacting. When it comes to helping these companies with cybersecurity on your end, could you walk me through, really utilizing administrative rights and permissions, what this conversation looks like with clients to ensure that this also helps bolster security on that more of an internal way, if you will?
Well, so the whole, malware is going to be software that's being installed on your computer to do whatever it's going to do. So that whether that's encrypting your data, whether it's popping up annoying ads, it could be a culmination of a lot of different things. So having less permissions on your computer to do things is going to help restrict that potential threat. So if you're a local administrator on your computer, if you're a domain administrator on the network, you're going to have abilities that maybe other users don't have. And so that puts your machine or your user account at risk to infect everything that you have access to, whether that's, again, your local machine or the entire network. So taking those rights and even separating them off with a different account that you might use would be a large help in that. So if your account does get compromised, it's only going to affect the small amount of things you can access on the network. Then taking that a step further, and then you go across the entire company as a whole, and then you audit and make sure, hey, does the sales guy need access to the engineering folder or vice versa? Does the accounting person need access to the engineering? And if the answer is no, then we restrict those access. So again, if the accounting person gets hit, they're not going to affect the engineering drive or the HR drive. And so really trying to mitigate that from those levels. And then just doing, again, just free things with, you're adding 2FA to your account and making sure that you're okay on that end. And the same thing goes with permissions with your Office 365 or your G Suite. So you want to make sure that your administrator account is just a separate account than your everyday normal account on those services as well.
Right. And I love that there's a handful of different strategies really that you're utilizing, some bigger, some smaller, but collectively and comprehensively, they work together to really bolster the overall reinforcement of, the infrastructure that a company has at their disposal. So in moving a little bit further, I want to talk a little bit more with you. I know a lot of the businesses you guys do. You had mentioned that you work in the construction and manufacturing space in Houston, but in your dealings with some of these small, more mom and pop shops, some of these smaller businesses, Greg, what's it like for you knowing that you were once a small business owner? And of course, BRAINTEK has seen their success. You guys have grown, but what's it like for you to, almost in a way, give back in helping smaller businesses, bolster their systems and just kind of reinforce those same businesses that you once saw yourself as?
Well, every dollar that you're spending as a business owner when you're growing is critical to helping you grow as a company. I mean, you've got payroll to pay and all these different services, and so you've got to really weigh the options of is this going to help me have a return on my investment? Is it going to keep me secure? Is it going to keep my money safe? Is it going to keep my data safe? So as a small business owner, you have to really take all those things into consideration as you're kind of going through these processes. Security is it's a necessary item that you need in your business, but at the same time, we don't want to be so secure that we can't get our jobs done. And so that's a delicate balance that we need to take with these business owners. And so we just really try to help them keep that security level as high as we can, but of course, keeping their businesses moving forward and making money.
All right, so that's the small business side. Walk me through, a typical conversation that might look like when you link up with a particular construction or manufacturing company. Are there any particular or regular or recurring instances and conversations that you see on this end that you're typically having with those types of clients?
The biggest thing is just making sure. So, from an auditing point of view, we are doing audits of our own work to make sure that we're not missing any security gaps. So as technicians kind of go along and they're troubleshooting issues, they may open up a certain port on the firewall, or they may enable some permissions temporarily to do testing to make sure that things are, working properly. But then it's possible that they might forget to close those gaps. And so coming back behind us and having a third party audit our networks and making sure that those are working properly and secure helps us make sure that our businesses are secure as well. Not only for them, but for our own business here as well, so that we are not the target in these types of instances.
So Greg, we've kind of hit a full gambit of things. Not only your work within cybersecurity, the education efforts that you guys do for your variety of clients, but another conversation topic that I wanted to bring up is really, what this jumping off points look like for you and a new client. So let's say you're good, because this is another big topic that we'd like to hit on this show is that, that initial engagement with maybe a new client. So let's say, you've got a meeting set up for a potential new client. Walk me through what that discovery process, what that meeting really looks like, the types of questions that might be asked so that you guys can get to know your client or maybe a potential client to get to know them better and evaluate the fit. Walk me through that process.
Yeah. So when we're going out to talk to a new prospect, we start trying to figure out what kind of problems or why they're calling us. So that could be that their current IT person or group is maybe unavailable. That's one of the larger things that we hear about is their lack of response. And so we just kind of reassure them and show them metrics on how fast we can respond to those types of issues. The other part might be that their current IT group or person that they're using doesn't have the expertise in a certain segment. So potentially wanting to move to the cloud. And then secondly is going to be, the issues that they may be just experiencing from I can't get these issues solved. Maybe the person that they're working with can't solve these, or they've band-aided the problems. And as a result, there are just constantly reoccurring issues. And so we want to look at those kind of things to find out what we can do to help them out. So a couple of things that we also will do is we'll ask if they want us to do a network security audit. So we'll come in there, kind of look at how their network is currently set up, what things that may be missing that we feel will help them stay secure. So that could be permissions on the server, that could or on their local machine. That could be the types of antivirus they might have or not. Do they have a backup set in place? Is that backup only local? Is it only offsite? Is it both? One of the clients we were recently talking with, their backup had failed because the IT group hadn't been testing it and verifying that it was in fact working. And as a result, they lost a bunch of data that's going to set them back. So those are the kind of things that we want to check on and make sure that we're dotting all those I's and crossing the T's when we're going through those, the prospect time period.
Certainly. Another big thing that I want to make sure that we circle back to, and you did just mention it right there, is responsiveness. That's really baked into the core fundamentals of BRAINTEK is that you guys want to be there and be there on a whim. If the phone rings, you guys are going to pick it up and be able to answer that call, faster and more efficiently than your competitor, faster and more efficiently than maybe the current IT solutions company that a client has in place. So that's a big thing that you guys focus on, and a tip of the cap to you guys for really pushing the envelope when it comes to that. Greg, as we kind of bring our conversation to a helm here, is there anything else that I didn't ask you in regards to BRAINTEK as a whole that you might want to share with us? And just it could be how the company operates, it could be something maybe you're just really passionate about within the space, but anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share with us?
There's a lot of our clients, when they come to us or prospects, one of the larger concerns is what if my IT guy got hit by a bus? And when you're a solo shop, and I was a solo shop for quite a while in my life, you have to set yourself up so that if there's an issue, that someone else can take over for that. And here we've grown our business so that there's multiple people here, and so if one technician were to leave or be injured, ill, vacation, sick, whatever, that someone else can step in and take over for them. And so that's been a really big thing that we needed to focus on over the years as well.
Roger that. And Greg, if anyone listening, one in our audience that was hearing our conversation today, maybe they're in and around the Houston area, maybe not, maybe they work in construction manufacturing, or they they're just interested in BRAINTEK as a whole. How would somebody go about scheduling a consultation with you to kind of get that conversation at least started?
They can just visit our website and go to braintek.com and or pick up the phone and give us a call. And either way, we'll go ahead and take their name and information and find out what we can do to help them.
Fantastic. Well, hey, look, Greg, really appreciate your time, peeling back the curtain today, talking to us about how your company's run as a whole, giving us a little bit of the secret sauce that you got, that made you guys a little, successful in this space. And look, hopefully we'll have you back here on the show to share some more secrets of the trade in days to come.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Ryan.
And look, we want to take a moment to thank you, our audience, for joining us here on another edition of the show. If you liked what you saw, you liked what you heard, remember, feel free to like, comment, subscribe to the show on whichever platform you're checking us out on. And of course, share this information with friends, family, maybe even a business owner that you think, one of our MSPs would be a great fit for. Because look, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. We're peeling back the curtain. We're showing you some managed service providers that do great work in this space and showing you some of those differentiating factors that makes them not just good, but great companies to work with. And certainly Greg Brainerd and his team at BRAINTEK are one of those. So for Mr. Greg Brainerd, I'm Ryan Ruff saying so long, and we thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of MSP Success Spotlight.